Hey, today we will be looking at how we can make a portrait-based cinemagraph. I've left a link for the video file in the description below. And for anyone who wants to use their own footage, when you're taking the shot, set your camera on a tripod and shoot for about 20 to 30 seconds. Good things to look out for when you're shooting are things that happen naturally in the environment. So stuff like fire, lightning, wind or water work really well. Jumping into After Effects, we're gonna make a new composition. I'm gonna call this one main. We're gonna keep the ratio 4:5, which is Instagram's optimal dimension. Next, we're gonna drag our footage onto our project and into the timeline. To scale your footage, click on the video file and hit S to open the scale dialog. We're just gonna scale it so it fits the composition. Now we need to rotate it. Hitting R will open up the rotation dialog, and we're just gonna rotate it to the right orientation. I'm just gonna scale it again so it fits. To make it easier navigating the timeline, I'm just gonna set some markers. You can do this by pressing Shift and a number, and it will make a marker according to the number you've pressed. Here I've made one at 2 seconds and one at 10 seconds. These are just temporary guidelines that will help you find a loop. Next, I'm gonna go and try to find the point I want to loop. What I'm looking for here is the two most extreme poses of the fan. So one closest to her face and one furthest from her face. And what we're gonna do is just boomerang between the two poses, so it looks like she's fanning back and forth continuously. I think this point here looks pretty good. I'm just gonna set this one here for now. Once we found the spot we want, we're gonna want to make a still version. So Control D will make a duplicate of the video layer. We're now gonna freeze this top layer and make it a still, so it gives us that illusion of a photo. To do this, we're gonna right click our top layer, we go to time and freeze frame. So now when you scrub through your timeline, the footage shouldn't be moving at all. I'm gonna rename this layer still. Next, we want to go back to looping our fan. So what we're gonna do is duplicate our bottom layer. This is gonna be the fan layer, so we're just gonna drag it to the top and rename it fan. With the fan layer here, we're gonna work on boomeranging the fan back and forth. So I'm just gonna search again for the two most extreme poses. The extreme poses would be when the fan is closest to her face and when it's furthest from her face. So I'm just gonna find the sequence in between, scrubbing through our timeline here. So what I'm doing here is just jumping back and forth one frame to find that precise moment, and you can do that by pressing page up and page down just to go back and forth one frame. So I found this point here. I'm gonna cut my layer using Control Shift D. You can also use Alt open and close bracket to trim your layer. I found this point I want to use, so I'm gonna align it back at 1 by pressing the back bracket on the layer. This should align the end point to 1. It's a little small on the timeline, so I'm just gonna zoom in. You can do it by this little bar here and just drag it left and right. We're now gonna create the boomerang, so just duplicate the fan and bring it back to the end of the first clip. You can just drag it across or press the back bracket to align it to your cursor. And then to reverse it, we're just gonna right click it, time, and then time reverse layer. We're now gonna adjust our work area so it's only aligned to the fan section. You can jump to the end of a clip by pressing O, or you can jump to the beginning by pressing I. Pressing O will close your work area at your cursor. You can also drag these handles manually. To bring your work area back in, you can press I for in. Let's just play back and see how this looks. Ooh, quite off the bat, I'm pretty happy with how this fan looks. So now I'm just gonna pre-compose this fan layer. So just clicking on both layers, I'm gonna hit Ctrl+Shift+C to pre-compose. I'm just gonna record this fan layer. So pre-composing is like making a folder in Photoshop, or it's like nesting in Premiere Pro. It's the same sort of idea. Looking at the dress movement here, I feel like it works pretty well. So I'm gonna leave that as it is. But on the left here, you can see me and my shadow fanning her from the left. So we're gonna work on removing that. So just duplicating the still here, we're gonna bring it back above the fan layer. And we're gonna mask out the part where I was fanning. So to mask it out, we're gonna use the pen layer, which is this pen here. And now we're just gonna mask out this left side where I was coming in with my shadow. Let's see how this looks. So there's an obvious cut here in the mask, so we're just gonna feather it out. So to feather it out, just click on your still layer and hit F for mask feather. And then we're just gonna make it maybe 150 and see how this looks. I think that's looking much better. Let's just have another look. There's a bit of shadow up here that's still affecting it, so we're gonna adjust our mask. Also on this left side, I feel like I'm gonna need to make a mask around this as well. Mainly because the fan should only be affecting the right side of the dress, so it makes it a bit more realistic if you're gonna freeze this left side. So I'm just gonna make another mask around here. And feather it again. Let's go 50. Let's see how this looks. So there's a bit of weird flapping thing happening here. We're just gonna fix that with another mask. Whoops, accidentally made a shape layer. So select your layer, then create another mask. Yep, I'm pretty happy with this motion. That's pretty much it for the motion aspect. To grade your footage, we can create a new adjustment layer. So just right click, new adjustment layer. And what we want to do is grab lumetri color from the effects panels, so lumetri, and just drag that on top of your adjustment layer. So for those who are photographers coming from Lightroom or Photoshop, lumetri color is very similar to the Lightroom settings as well as Adobe Camera Raw. So you've got your temperature, you got your tint, exposure, all that. You've also got your creative, which is a lot of your color options as well as a lot of presets. So you got your film stocks and you got your bleached film. You've also got your curves down here, as well as color wheels and your HSL. When you're finished with your grade and you're happy with everything, it's time to export. So click on File, Export, and add to Media Encoder Queue. We're gonna keep the settings at H.264. Keep it at match source high bitrate. This preset keeps the quality as high as possible whilst keeping the file sizes quite low. And that's it. Hope these have helped, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below.